file, folder, drive, or you can recover at the entire system level, which is very powerful. Steve Strickland asks, I have a question regarding pricing models and comparing SOS to other vendors who provide a flat fee for unlimited data. How does SOS price their backup? Unlimited flat fee, tiered per backup size. So Steve, slightly different model. We sell to you as a wholesaler and you sell to your customers. So you're free to price it to your customers on an unlimited data model. And some of our partners do that. You buy it from us on a per gigabyte basis and we sell it to you at a very low per gigabyte rate, and then you resell it to your customers at whatever rate you like. Steve Strickland says, does SOS backup external drives too? Some of my customers are USB external drives for backup. Yes, Steve. So firstly, you can back up those external drives to the cloud. Secondly, you could use the free integrated local backup system of SOS to back up the PC to the external drive. So you could send data both ways. All right, so let's now look at our new management technology. Earlier in the presentation, I talked about how SOS was built around three core product strategies of protect, access, and share. Well, we're adding a fourth string to that bow, which is manage, and that's our new Pulse management, reporting, and diagnostic system, which lets you deploy, control, and report on your online backup universe. So in our new release, we've got a whole lot of new technology around Protect, which is exciting with our new Smart Scanner tool, iPhone backup, BlackBerry backup, so we're now actually backing up the mobile devices, which is really exciting. But what we're most excited about is Pulse. And what SOS Pulse does, as I said, is three things: deployment, control, and then reporting on the right-hand side. And across the top, you can see all of the additional technologies that have been built into Pulse. So silent installer for central deployment, default settings enablement, remote diagnostics. So if you're managing 1,000 PCs, the system will automatically do health monitoring of all of those PCs backups and do the diagnostics on what might be going wrong if there are problems. Backup policy creation, so you can create policies and apply those policies to groups or individual deployments. We're going to see all that. Built-in exception reporting and extremely granular backup session reports. It's the only platform of its kind in the industry, and it's really we are very excited by it. It really leapfrogs us a generation ahead of our competition in terms of what our technology is capable of doing. So what is Pulse capable of doing? Well, the first thing's around deployment. Pulse lets you generate installers on the fly for you to then be able to deploy on tens or hundreds of PCs. So you can use Pulse to manage up to 5,000 PCs. The second thing is it does ongoing, persistent, centralized monitoring of all of your of the PCs in your network, because when you're managing 1,000 PCs backup, you simply can't do it manually. So automated monitoring of health, backup health, time that they've been connected to the network, how frequently their backups ran, what issues there might be that that happened with that backup. Moving on to central management, the ability to remote control all those machines. And none of our competitors have this at all. One of the big bugbears with online backup is that if you've got 1,000 PCs backing up to your cloud, how do you manage all of those backups, and how do you change those backups, for example? Well, with the new Pulse framework, you can actually remote control all of those systems, and there's a variety of commands you can send. So you can change the logging level, get logs, run backup now, apply backup policy, which means you can change the backup time or backup selection. We're going to see all this. All right, so, and these are the commands that Pulse supports, so it can create backup policies and apply them, get logs, change log level, run backup now, enable management, enroll a deployment in a policy, and create and manage policies, and then some powerful reporting functionality, which I'm going to turn to. So let's actually have a look at Pulse. And before we do that, we've just got a couple of questions. Philip Schiller asks, will this PowerPoint be available after the webinar? Philip, yes, it will. You'll get a video after the webinar. Sorry, you'll get an email sent to you with a video of the webinar. And if you want the actual PowerPoint, call in and talk to one of our partner specialists and ask them for the PowerPoint from this morning's webinar. And our Partner Resource Center, by the way, is filled with presentations like this that you can use to sell to your own customers. So the Partner Resource Center is a really powerful portal that our partners have got access to, and presentations like this are in there for you to use yourself. Kenneth Moran says, you said that there was no need to test recoverability. Why, and is that a guarantee? So Kenneth, the system tests recoverability for you. So if when a backup confirms, it actually does a test recovery. So with SOS, you'll see in the backup agents 3 steps: processing files, transferring files, confirming files. Once it's done that confirmation, it's already verified recoverability of the data in the cloud. All right, so let's look at SOS Pulse, and you're really some of the first people getting a live view of this system. So if you'd like more information on Pulse, please call in and talk to one of our partner specialists. But Pulse is built around some pretty basic concepts to grasp: backup accounts, client machines, deployments, events and reports, backup policies. So if we look at backup accounts, these are just SOS subscriptions, or in the case of, if you were a partner, it would be, let's say we've got David Rada Online Backup. Sorry to keep picking on you, Dave. These might all be David's customers. Entity is something we use. That's basically a partner ID. Think of it like that. So this would say David Rada Online Backup. And you can see here we've got about 20 backup accounts that are being managed by this Pulse instance. Actually, just a question: is it large enough on the screen? Can you see the detail coming through on GoToWebinar, or is it very small? We had some feedback the other day that people were having difficulty seeing it. So if somebody could confirm, that would be great. Okay, Caden Pownell says she can see it. That's terrific. I hope that's a she, Caden. All right, so moving on to client machines. This is really where the rubber hits the road with Pulse. The challenge that we faced with Pulse is, how does a customer manage Caden? No worries. My apologies there, Caden. So the challenge that we had to solve with Pulse is, how do you manage the backups of 5,000 different computers? So the way you do that is you manage it through client machines. So Pulse is a small executable, little 2 megabyte executable that the Pulse server generates for you. And embedded into that Pulse executable is identification information and backup account information and policies. You then deploy that out over something like, for example, Active Directory, group policies, or any other deployment tool that you're using. And then what Pulse does, it will suck down the SOS technology from the cloud, install the SOS product, install the Pulse framework, register the backup account on the system, and then set up the default backup policies and run a backup. So it handles end-to-end everything involved in the deployment cycle for pushing online backup out over a large network. Now, most of our partners are managing small business networks. So a typical partner of ours has got, say, 20 small business customers, and each customer's got 10 to 20 employees. So there might be 400 or 500 PCs that the partner's managing across multiple environments. So this can be used across all of those domain boundaries. You could set up Pulse so that you've got one Pulse instance for each of your customers, or you could just have one Pulse instance and then use one Pulse instance to manage all of those 400 PCs that you're dealing with. And you can see here on this server we've got about 10 machines, but you'll notice before we had 20 accounts. So it's because we've got several accounts running on some of these machines, and you can do that. So you can have as many backup deployments on a machine as you'd like. And you can see here that this PC here, Wagner LT, it's running Windows 7 Professional 64-bit. This is when SOS is installed. This is where it's installed, the log path, the backup agent logs, the version number. This is really important when you're managing hundreds of PCs to make certain everybody's running the latest and greatest technology. Time zone the customer's in, and then we get into all the other management objects. So let's look at those. Let's look at backup deployments on that machine. So this is a server machine that we're looking at. And what you'll notice here is there's a ton of backup deployments on this particular box. So we've got all these different accounts running on that one physical box. And going across to the right, we'll see more information about these deployments. You'll see we can drill in and actually see their backup set and see what's being backed up. We can see the policy that are being applied to a deployment. So we've got there's only one policy on this machine. The machine's running 10 accounts, but it's got one policy called John's Workstation. If we click into John's Workstation, we can see what's in that policy. Let's have a look at that in detail. So you can see this is a demo policy, and the policy involves backing up the Intel folder and a file that doesn't exist.txt. What's pretty cool about this is that the Pulse policy applicator is intelligent. So if we go to events and reports, we look at view all events, and then event type server policy applied to client. We've got some warnings here on that particular box, Wagner LT. If we look at the details of this warning, you'll see warning, partially applied backup policy to the deployment on that machine for this user. Warning details are, warning 1, file that doesn't exist.txt was not found, ignoring this file for policy application. So you can see we successfully applied the policy to the machine, but it didn't make breaking changes. It figured out that part of the policy was no good for this particular box, and so it moved on. So it's still a successful server policy applied to the client event. So you can see some of the power involved in managing policies and applying policies. If we go back to deployments and sort by policies, we can see which policies are on these boxes. So only 3 of my deployments have policies, but I've got 30 deployments here in this system. One of them is running the John's test policy. One of them is running, well, actually my computer here is running the file service policy. And Richard Valdemar, one of our partner specialists, he's running the user's public policy. User's public policy is one of the default policies, and it's a policy that just says, I want all the deployments to back up the C user's public folder. Pretty common type of a policy to apply. So that gives you a pretty good overview, I think, of the way that you can deploy, manage, and control a really large number of deployments. I've only got 30 deployments here in this particular instance, but you can manage up to 5,000 deployments with Pulse. In terms of event reports, some of the most common reports that are needed are backup session reports and view error events. So if we look at the event types that Pulse supports, I think this really gives you the best sense of what Pulse is savvy to. So for example, Pulse can detect that the backup software is installed, backup software is uninstalled, scheduled backup ran successfully or it ran with errors, scheduled backup failed to run is a very important event. You'll see that it's got an error level of 2 to denote that it's a fatal condition. So really when you're looking at your event reports, filtering on error level is pretty important. Manual backup ran successfully. If, I won't walk through all of these, but you can see the types of events that the system supports, including turning management on and off, creating policies, applying policies, changing the config. Very powerful system. Under the hood, from a plumbing standpoint, some of the client commands are interesting, and I'll show that very briefly. Here we go, command types, because this gives you a sense of what you can do with Pulse. So the command types here, get config files, publish them, get client logs, change logging level, apply server policy, enable management, run backup now. So you can even trigger backups remotely, which is pretty exciting. And in version 2 of Pulse, we're going to have other just generic management functions.